What's going on, guys? Abrasus here. So today we'll have the second episode of Pimp My List. We have two familiar lists to, I hope, most of you. One is a bit changed because of the rules changed since it was on. And the second one is actually a request from one of my videos to feature the Konstantin list from ETC, Team Russia. So it will be great for me to talk about it as well. So let's start with the first list. This is Elves list. It was first, like the first version I know of was at the WTC, and Miguel Calderon played it. I hope I didn't butcher your name. So this was CaaL list. But the legendaries were a bit smaller. Then there was a Manticore, since at the WTC you could use Manticore with Midnight Cloak, which was much better than the Pegasus. And there was like one more Raptor Chariot. So there are some changes, but so what are the pros of this list? You have very good board control and lots of deployment drops. This is pretty much connected to each other, but it's worth mentioning both of those. You have very good zoning and a very fast aggressive army. The Pegasus load is actually very killy and very safe in the same time, because contrary to the Bretonia load, who has only 5 up or 6 up ward save, here you have a 3 up ward save against ranged. You have a bit smaller damage output, like you cannot do 20 wounds in one turn, but still it is enough, and with one up armor save you can most likely just kill things in the second turn, because you have a strength 6 with transcendence if you manage to score to do 2 wounds, and having strength 8 on the second charge in the game is pretty nice. Also, you will have you have a lot of high toughness models, so you are decently defended from light shooting, which is always the bane of the Dread Elves. So yeah, probably you could try playing against Sylvan Elves with this list. So what are the cons? The scoring here is actually terrible, in my opinion, especially in the original list. Like I think the list is a bit better for the team tournaments, because you can pair it up better to just push your opponent, and then the scoring is not so much of an issue. But in the bad matchups, the scoring, I think, is a big issue. That's why generally I don't feel like playing this list, and this is not my style, definitely, because it, I think, heavily depends on matchup. Miguel, feel free to comment on that. I think here in the original list there was Alchemy. Here you have Divination, and I think Divination is not a good substitute. Alchemy got some nerf, but still, I think Alchemy here would be better, since now you have you basically don't have answers against high armor. You have only the load, and the load is not really that much of an answer. Like 1-up knights, 2-up Bretonia knights, you have strength 5 everywhere, so Bretonias have better ward save, yeah. And pretty much no shooting, like those shots from Raptors don't really count, right? This is 12 shots, mostly at 6s. So how does it look on the battlefield? I would personally imagine something like this. The one unit trying to get a bit flanky, then you have to put your mage somewhere. The Pegasus has lots of places to cover, and then he can just hide inside the units if necessary. The altar decently close to the Raptors, because it can enter both Raptors and infantry units. Yeah, I would guess something like this. Hydras as the fastest marching elements of this list, except for Pegasus, can be more deeply on the flanks. But I would guess I would want 12-inch from my general. Though with Divination maybe that's not as necessary, but I don't think that the gimmick is good enough to take it. So the changes. Okay, first of all, as I said, divination. Divination also requires a wandering familiar that I don't like. I don't feel like spending extra points only to get an extra range here. So I would much rather just have alchemy here, and possibly the extra spell. Also, I think paired weapons on Divine Altar and Moriah Creeping, especially with Alchemist Alloy, are a bit of a waste. I found out that during my games with Divine Altar, it was sometimes in the unit, sometimes not. But if it was in the like every time basically, it mostly got chaff in the games. And unfortunately, with impact hits, it usually got to kill chaff before Morek's ripping effect come in. So I don't think this is really worth it on this model. Then you have Fleet Commander Prince. Yeah, I think Fleet Commander Prince is interesting, but you have no Corsairs here, so I think this is just a waste. Like one Aparmo save is not that worth it. And then you have the big unit of Legionaries that goes over core. You probably could also limit on that. So what I would do is I would do something like this. And yeah, so you can see, instead of the big Legionaries unit, I would rather have 10 Corsairs vanguarding, the Oracle with Alchemy, but with no item whatsoever, and the Divine Altar 70 points cheaper. I also got rid of one Raptor Chariot for the moment, just to show you how many free points you could possibly get. This is 425 points that you can fill in with anything you basically want. So what are the suggestions? The book is actually quite nice on this level, and I think many things fit here. So first of all, I would suggest to try the Kraken, since he deals with the armor a bit more, especially if you want to stick with divination. Then Kraken might be good, with rerolls to hit it becomes a real beast. Then obviously you can put just 2 Raptor Chariots back in, just to be even closer to the original list. You have the Acolytes, I think very interesting models with 4-up ward save, with lots of attacks, with poisons. Definitely an interesting choice. You can also bring them the champion. If you bring them the champion, maybe you should consider taking off the master from Oracle, making Oracle only adept, and it would free out some points in heroes in case you wanted to take something like assassin to cover for the armor weakness. There are 3 choices if you want to cover for the scoring weakness, which are Dread Knights, which are nice. Tower Guard that are interesting because of ITP, so they can cover flanks more easily. And then there are Dread Judges with Strength 6, Nab, and multi-wounds occasionally. They can also be an interesting scoring choice. There is also a pick of Medusa. I think Medusa is a bit it is a bit lacking, but for 150 points it looks like semi-decent chaff. Maybe then you should get rid of one. If you take Medusa, maybe you should get rid of one Dark Riders from core and improve your scoring units there. So just increase the numbers. And if you take Medusa, you also help your magic a bit, since the bounce spell is not that great, but it helps. And 5 attacks, strength 5. Like the special ability is a gimmick, and I wouldn't count on it. But 150 points, chaff unit, decently fast, can deal some damage. I don't think it's that bad. Okay, so moving on to the second list, Konstantin list. He scored best at this year's ETC, so kudos to him for that. The list is pretty interesting, but pretty simple at the same time. So basically you have a Pendulum and a Bell, and 2 units for Pendulum and the Bell, and then some shooting. So pretty simple. What are the pros? Yeah, you have 18 in general, you have large amount of shooting. Thanks to the adept on pendulum, you have like really lots of spells to pick from, and you are very good CR wise. Like you need 10 models in the unit to have maximum +4 CR from ranks, which is very interesting. And what are the cons? The Jezails seem a bit risky here. You only have leadership 7 on them. And if you want to push the bell, like I can understand that the bell unit remains a bit backwards, but generally I think it is pretty mandatory to have the Jezails, both units of Jezails within the range of BSB, because they tend to hurt each other, and then like any magic missile, panic on leadership 7, even rerollable is shaky, but on leadership 7 without reroll, yeah, that's just terrible. And this is basically it, and then the footpaths are a bit risky as well. Also, if you lose the general here, it doesn't look great, I think, and I think it becomes even worse if you lose the pendulum. So if you fight against something like 2 cannons, it sounds really bad, because if you lose the pendulum, you lose most of your CC potential. So I think that some armies can just really push you hard, and you will be in a lot of trouble. So this is the encircle deployment, as you can see from the map. If you find yourself unlucky enough to be forced to deploy more on the flank, that's not really an issue with this list, because you can build a pretty decent corner with it. The catapult on the right is positioned a bit strangely, but I think that I would rather have it further on the right than have it closer to the left, and then open any potential overruns from my opponent units. So the Doom Wheels are covering the flanks, Vermin Guards a bit hoping to score, footpaths in the center together with swarms to be redirectors. The swarms are in front of Jezails because basically swarms mean -1 cover. So for anything bigger than infantry, you can put swarms in front of Jezails and don't care about cover. So this one is pretty nice. Oh, and one more thing that I don't really like about this list, and I forgot, and it's pretty important, is that the bell is very risky. Like, if you want to have Comet reliably, then you really need to 4 dice it, and with 4 dice you can kill your bell. This is really bad. So I think getting Comet off here, yeah, probably I would not roll Comet at all. Though the snipe, 24-inch snipe, seems really decent. Okay, so what changes could I like? It is very hard to make any adjustment to this list, because obviously Konstantin worked a lot of it on it, so it's hard to suggest any changes, and the result reflects that. But what I really don't like in this list is the Vermin Guard unit. Like, they are basically there for the lightning rod. I would rather have a lightning rod on the BSB, but there are issues connected with that. You are very tight on character limit, so you would have to get rid of some of the protection items, which is kind of bad. But on the other hand, you can then put rat swarms into core, so just make them giant rats. I think giant rats are again very good CR addition. The problem is again that this will make positioning of Jezails much harder, because there will be not enough spots to shoot through. But going on with those changes, then you can exchange the Vermin Guards for Rat at Arms, and you have enough points to get the Meat Grinder, I think. This is what I counted, and then you have an extra combat unit, and Meat Grinder can even go by itself as a chaff. So I think I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure those changes won't make the list better, but I'm not sure if they will make them worse. And I would probably go with something that has more CC and more units. So maybe this is how I would go for that. Okay, thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next one. Cheers.